Welcome to Leadership Deprogrammed. We have all been programmed. We have been programmed by the things that we've read, we've been programmed by our experience, and we've been programmed by the people who love us, by the people who taught us. What do I mean by that? Well, let's just see. If I ask the question, who's a leader? What image comes up in your mind? Do you see yourself? Most likely not. And that's what we mean by we have been programmed. We have been programmed to think of leadership as something other than ourselves, something outside of ourselves. And that's the reason we run the program. We are inviting you to see yourself as leader. We want, when we ask the question, who's a leader, that you could put up your hand and say, yes, I am a leader. Today, I have with me on Zoom a very special guest and friend, Courtney McNish. Courtney is a labor law specialist and a human resources consultant. Courtney, welcome to Leadership Deprogrammed.
Oh, thank you so very much, Maxine. I knew this took a while for us to be able to get this together. I apologize for any inconvenience, but I'm happy to be here to share whatever I need to share with you and your guests.
Yes, I really appreciate you coming on. And, as we say, it's not when you come, we're just happy that you came, right? We're just glad that you're here. And Courtney, I invited you to talk today about, this issue about employers and vaccination, because there's a growing agitation as we return to work, as offices invite their staff not to work from home, to come back into the office. And we're seeing the agitation. We saw the protests in Barbados and in St. Vincent around the idea of mandatory vaccinations. So I really invited you here today to call on your HR background and your labor law specialty to speak a little bit about this concern about, can employers ask employees to vaccinate against COVID-19?
The short answer to that, in my respectful view, is yes. Let me, however, qualify that and be very clear. We have no legislation, we have no jurisprudence emanating from our courts at the moment that speaks directly to the issue. So everything I say here this morning is from my professional opinion, driven by my 40 years of experience in the business. And in my respectful view, an employer can in fact instruct, direct, or mandate an employee to receive the vaccination.
So we're going to stick a pin right there, and I just want to be really, really clear to the audience that Courtney, based on his 40+ years of experience, is saying that even though there is no court order, no law in Trinidad and Tobago, that an employer can mandate that employees take the vaccine to return to work. When we come back from the break, we're going to hear exactly why Mr. McNish is making this prediction.
Gift giving during a lockdown can still be hassle-free with a gift from FanZone with delivery options available nationwide. Visit and browse our Facebook and Instagram pages for all your official licensed merchandise and apparel and have it delivered to your door. Find us on Facebook and Instagram. FanZone, we've got you covered.
The purpose of the show is to look at everyday issues that we may be struggling with. I am your favorite neighborhood psychologist, Sule Joseph.
Women think that they see something good in the mix of other things that they're seeing that are toxic, and think they can hold on to that good and they can expand on that good.
We have the fathers being absent and the mothers really doing this Herculean task to try to be a mother and a father, but at the same time, in this overcompensation, you find yourself setting up your sons for failure.
And I think the conversation needs to shift a bit from saving women to, well, not shift necessarily, but it also needs to include educating our men and boys.
It's Psyched, Thursdays at 11 a.m. right here on WESN.
the bath with lemon water and apple cider vinegar. I can always tell when patients are doing this.
And they need that stimulus sometimes. They need to know that the doctor there for them.
A challenge young girls have, seeing all these muscles and having society say that, oh, she's looking real masculine.
I want to have hope that there's hope for sports on a whole in Trinidad and Tobago.
Even just going from that negative to neutral, because sometimes the negative to positive is too big a jump.
What's up, Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
It may seem like the hardest thing to do right now, but we all need each other to wear a mask, wash our hands, watch our physical distance, and stay at home. We need you safe. Together we can make the difference. Together we can curb the spread of COVID-19. So let's be responsible in our actions. The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to Leadership Deprogrammed, and today on this program I am discussing, can employers ask employees to be vaccinated? And I have with me on Zoom Courtney McNish, and he has categorically stated, yes, employers can mandate employees to be vaccinated to return to work full time. Courtney, just share with us, just expand on that a little bit for us.
Sure. As I said before we went on break, there's no jurisprudence, there's no court in this country as yet has pronounced on this particular matter. So this is my professional opinion. Mm-hmm. But before I go further, I spent a lot of time in Mayaro. And this weekend I was up in Mayaro. And I was having a conversation with a younger person than me. He's about 50. His biggest child is about probably 25, 26. And he's an anti-vaxxer. He's against the vaccine. Mm-hmm. So I said, but why are you taking this position? And you vaccinated all your children so they can go to school? And he quite honestly answered me in a manner that I thought I had to note. He said there was no social media available in the times when I sent my children to school. So it told me completely, Maxine, that he was getting his information that has influenced him and caused him to take that position solely from social media. He isn't listening to doctors. He is not listening to the scientists. He isn't for science. Some influencer on social media has gotten hold of his mind. So I just wanted to make that point. Now, I remember a couple of months ago, one of the leading fast food companies, a letter they sent out to their employees planning their return to work, hit social media, and it was shared all over the place.
Yes, I got a voice recording of it, yes.
Right. I got a call from a leading newspaper for my comments and views on the matter. And my response is, I have read the letter. I have heard what the company is saying. And I find the company's position entirely reasonable. I didn't say the company was right. I didn't say the company was wrong. I said it was reasonable. And in this country, that is the requirement placed on the shoulders of employers, to always act in a manner that is reasonable, that is not harsh and oppressive, that is consistent with good industrial relations practices. As I examined that particular document, I recognized that an employer consulted with his employees. He gave alternatives. He provided advice. He didn't threaten to fire anybody for not taking it. And therefore, I could find nothing wrong with what he was doing. He's in the fast food business.
Yes.
But what also struck me, Maxine, about that particular employer is his leadership outlook.
Tell me more.
He said, yes, he said, why we need to do this is to protect and preserve our business, not for today, but for the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because, Lord forbid, but let's suppose there is indeed another outbreak and we've got to shut down. Given that the government's spoken policy is vaccinate to operate, if I can show that my business, we are 80, 90% vaccinated, we are operating safely, then I stand a better chance of not being shut down than Mr. A or Mr. B next door.
Yes. And I love that introduction of that idea, Courtney, because I think beyond the COVID, beyond the disease, there is the business case to be made around the vaccination. And in the social media offerings, we're not seeing that debate raging about what is the cost of doing business with COVID? What's the cost to business because we're not vaccinated? And how does the vaccine allow us to operate? So I'm really glad that you put that in and introduced the business side of it. But you were mentioning about a reasonable man. Sorry about that. So go ahead.
Yes. No. I'm saying, indeed, it was this particular case, in my view, that got me thinking, sit down to analyze the situation, and allowed me to come to a position that I've now articulated.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You see, he's looking at his business.
Yes.
He has a right to protect his business, and his business includes his employees, includes his customers and clients.
Yes.
And let's put aside now any statutory obligation he may have under the OSHA legislation. But he has a common right a common law obligation of a duty of care to make sure he does all that he can possibly do to provide a safe working environment for his employees. He has an obligation, a duty of care to his clients and customers to ensure when they come into their place, they have some degree of assurity that they're walking into a safe environment. And he was seeing, not today, as I said before, he was seeing tomorrow and beyond.
For the future.
We have experienced wave after wave all over the world of this disease. Every major country in this world has shut down more than once.
Yes.
Whether entirely or partially somewhere or the next.
Yeah,
so he was simply looking at what would happen in the future. So therefore, I believe he was entirely reasonable.
Yes, and I love the idea of introducing the duty of care, because as managers, as leaders, as directors of company, we do have a fiduciary duty and we do have a duty of care under the ethical code of our leadership. So really important for people to note that if it is that I have a duty of care to keep you reasonably safe in my organization, I may ask you to vaccinate. So Courtney, one thing before we go into any other discussion, one thing I really wanted to know is about the terms and conditions of an existing contract. Because what I was led to believe was that if you're new, I can ask you to vaccinate. But my existing employees, I can't ask them because that may be a violation of the terms and conditions of their employment.
Well, I have developed a theory on that, Maxine.
Tell us.
And I honestly believe and hold the view that a request for an existing employee to vaccinate is not a variation of the existing terms and conditions of employment. And I will walk you through my thinking on it. We live and operate in a vaccinated society because there are rules and regulations in our legal system that require you, before you go to any school, private or public, you must receive vaccinations for a whole set of stated listed diseases.
Yes.
Smallpox, chickenpox, rubella, polio. I remember receiving my polio vaccine. My mother and father had no idea the Ministry of Health was coming to my school to administer polio vaccines when I got my vaccine.
Well, your mom and dad didn't have social media accounts.
Oh, they had no idea. I just went and I took it and I was fine. And everybody took vaccine. As a big man, I was traveling to a particular country and I was told I had to have a yellow fever vaccine. And I went and I got it. Okay? A vaccine is a vaccine. And I totally discount what anybody's saying about how fast it developed. It is technology. Technology makes things faster.
Yes.
Long time we used to drive with manual cars. Today, if you want a manual car, you have to specifically ask for it. They're all automatic now. That is technology. Right, so let's move on. Since we operate in a vaccinated society, an employment contract does not operate in a vacuum. It lives, it finds its life within the society confines in which it exists. And since everybody must be vaccinated to go to school, when I go to the table to sign an employment contract with an employee, I am doing so in the contemplation in my mind that that person is vaccinated from a whole series of diseases because they went to school.
Yes.
When an employee comes and signs that contract, he is also contemplating in his mind, either subconsciously or directly, that he's coming to work in a place that is safe from these infectious diseases because all the employees were indeed vaccinated because they too went to school.
Yes.
An employment contract has express terms, and we all know, those of us who are in this business, know about even the implications of what is called the implied terms. Over the years, courts have repeatedly determined and imposed implied terms in contracts. An implied term is a term that is not written in the contract.
Yes.
It was not, and it could not have been probably even already discussed at the time when the contract was executed. But it is so blatantly obvious that the contract could not live or exist without it.
Yes, so just to break it down a little bit, it's like there's no contract that will be written that an employee will not be sexually harassed because that is implied and understood under the terms and conditions of work. Yes.
Thank you very much. And there's no term that's written in a contract that say you shall not steal from your employer.
Exactly. But you'll take a paper.
But you know if you steal from your employer, okay? And those are the implied terms.
Yes.
I am saying to you, because it is so blatantly obvious that we come to the tables as vaccinated people. And because if you are not vaccinated, it will be difficult. If nobody is vaccinated, it will have been difficult for businesses to freely operate. We call that the efficacy of the business operation. That it is very easy, in my view, to determine that a court, if asked to, will impose the vaccination as an implied term in your contract of employment.
Yes.
It is so blatantly obvious because we all are vaccinated.
Yes. So the precedent has been set in that we are a vaccinated society. So this is one more vaccine. So it falls within the construct of our society. Yes.
Right. You get the point. So that if indeed we can say it is an implied term in the contract, then to mandate that employees take the vaccine is not a variation of the term. The term exists. It's implied. It is indeed an enforcement of it. You are enforcing a term that already exists.
That is very interesting.
That is for those persons who are already employed.
Yes.
It is far easier to mandate it for those who are yet to be employed.
Yes.
Those future employees.
And
I know some employers.
And we're seeing that happening. We're seeing that happening.
Yes. They are taking the position. Those new employees would have to present proof of vaccination, or you're required to be vaccinated before I even consider you for employment. And let me give you an example. This is a true example of a client of mine. He operates a merchant surveying, a marine surveying company. A ship is coming in on one day. 2 days before the ship comes in, he gets a call from the shipping agent. Listen, the owners of these ships are now saying for your technicians to go on board our ship to conduct the service, they must be vaccinated, they must have proof of vaccination, and they must present a negative test that is not more than 48 hours old. That's his business.
Yes.
That is the job he does. That's what keeps him going. That's what pays his employees. All his employees say, hey, we kind of expected that, fine. I'm vaccinated, I'm fine. Once you're fine, I'll go and get it. One person said, no. You in here, the vaccine has metals or chips or microchips in it. I ain't taking no vaccine. He says he's not taking any vaccine.
Right.
So he calls me, advise him, look, sit down and talk with the man. Try to explain him, right? Call in the Ministry of Health, let the Ministry of Health consult. He did all that. And the young man insists that this vaccine has microchips, and therefore he will not be taking it.
Yes.
What is the employer's choice?
Not
what
to
is his
roster
option?
him? Well, I guess he will have a choice of sending him to clients who do not require vaccinated personnel.
And if he has no such clients?
Well, then the
and
guy...
all his clients...
Yes, he becomes redundant. Yeah, he becomes redundant.
Yes.
Yeah.
He will have to terminate the contract of his employment.
Yeah.
And I cannot see which court would say that the employer acted unreasonably by terminating that contract.
Yes, because the employer, as you explained earlier, has a duty of care to the clients as well. But before we go, I wanted to just check one more thing. There's a phrase, instructions, and is it work instructions? Instructions of a contract? Yes, I wanted you to just define that for me against the terms and conditions of contract, because I think that is a very significant point that you will raise.
Okay. There has been the issue about whether these are terms and conditions of employment, the requirement to be vaccinated. The English jurisprudence has moved beyond that. They have indicated clearly this is nothing to do with terms and conditions of employment. This is a workplace instruction. Right. This is a requirement in order for you to do the job. But let me make the distinction. Terms and conditions are in fact those vital parts of the contract that supports its existence. Without those terms, there will be probably no contract of employment. So they have express terms and implied terms. And those cannot be varied unilaterally.
Yes.
A workplace instruction is purely about how the job is done, what you do to effectively accomplish the required outcomes of the job, when it is to be done, by what standards is going to be measured. All those are workplace instructions. Those are clearly within the remit of management. And management can in fact change workplace instructions as required, as circumstances required. Again, if you have time, I'll give an example. This young man takes a job in a furnace. At the time when he takes the job, if the requirement at the workplace level, if you spend 2 hours in front of the furnace, you must consume 2 liters of water every 2 hours once you're directly facing the furnace. And you must have a 15-minute break at least every 1 3/4, something like that. Something happened during that employment, and the management changed the workplace instruction from, hey, you must not only have 2 liters of water. We're not going to make it ½ liter of water and ½ liter of an electrolyte to replace the fluids, etc., etc. He refused to take the electrolyte because his religious told him that those drinks are drinks of the devil.
Of course.
They contained things of the devil.
Yes.
And he refused to drink it. That is not a variation of his terms and conditions of employment.
It is a workplace instruction.
It is him refusing to carry out a reasonable workplace instruction.
Absolutely.
And that is the difference between the two.
Yeah, so Courtney, I really want to thank you for being here and really shedding some light from your 40 plus years of experience in HR and in labor law as a specialist. And just to summarize a little bit of what you said, employers under duty of care, they can request a vaccination because they have a duty of care to all employees and to clients and their contractors to keep the organization safe. Your terms and conditions of work really have implied conditions as well as explicitly stated conditions. And the implication is that we are and we do live in a vaccinated society. So under that implication, just as we don't expect to be harassed at work, we should be able to be safe around the people who work with us. And the third thing, which I think was really interesting, is the difference between a terms and conditions of a contract and a workplace instruction. A workplace instruction is about a context, and we already spoke about the duty of care and the assumptions about the people who are working with us. So it falls right within the workplace instructions to maintain that construct of a safe working place. I really want to thank you for being here with us on Leadership Deprogrammed and adding so much juice to this discussion, because I'm sure there'll be arguments against what you said. But just to remind everybody out there, social media may or may not be your best source of information at this point in time. So we're tuning out on Leadership Deprogrammed, and we have a repeat of the show at 12:30 on Friday. So make it a lunch and learn. And of course, you can send any comments or questions to me, Maxine Atong, LinkedIn, on Facebook, or here at the station, WESN.com. See you next week.